today's session is all about boosting brand visibility for AI, for the AI search era. And also, we'll come with some lessons from Otter AI, Ambiq, as well as tennis. So, with that said, I'm really excited to welcome you all here today to this session. It's an exciting time, I believe, when it comes to SEO and AI search in general. And our goal really is to share and learn together as we tackle the challenges and also the opportunities that are ahead of us in regards to AI search. I'm your host. I'm Thomas Peaham, CEO at Otter AI. Otter AI is an AI search monitoring solution helping 10,000 plus marketing professionals navigate AI search and also hopefully optimize for better visibility on AI search. And with me today, I'll have Charlene Wang, VP Corporate Marketing at Ambiq. So welcome, Charlene. I'm super excited to have you here in this session today. Do you want to give us a quick intro on yourself and Ambiq?
Hi, I'm Charlene Wan. I'm VP of Corporate Marketing and Investor Relations at Ambiq. I'm very happy to be here to share some of our experiences and my personal journey with everyone. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Charlene. Thanks for being here. Also, we have Michelle Landry here, CEO at Tennis Communications. Quickly over to you, Michelle, for a quick intro.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Michelle and I lead Tennis Communications. We're a tech PR marketing agency. We work with Charlene and other tech companies around the world. And I've been using Otterly. I'm a big fan of Otterly because we're really using it to see how our clients are showing up in AI search and very passionate about this topic and glad to be here.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Michelle. And yeah, what's to come in the next few minutes, right? What are we tackling? We're gonna tackle the topic of brand visibility on AI search, right? And as a starting point, I wanted to lead into that conversation with lots of data, right? Because I know you've all probably been wondering what's going on AI search, who's showing up as a website, who's showing up as a brand on the different AI search channels. So, what I wanted to do here as a starting point, before we dive over to Charlene's experience at Ambiq, as well as Michelle's PR expertise, really, and how PR these days is influencing AI search, I wanted to come to you with lots of data. Don't be afraid. I think it's going to be some interesting data points, but for the next few minutes, I will zoom in on our AI citation study that we actually published and released last week, where we analyzed about 1 million websites and about 1 million brands. And the main goal for us was to understand which websites get picked up by the different AI search engines, be it ChatGPT, be it the Google ecosystem with Google AI overviews, or Perplexity. Those were the three main AI search engines we focused our citation study on. So let's dive into some quick results before we head over to the next chapters. I mean, I don't need to tell you because you're all here as you want to learn more about AI search. I don't need to tell you that search is undergoing some fundamental change, right? I think we've all seen, heard about that, and experienced it firsthand on how consumer behavior these days is changing a lot and already has changed a lot, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at the global statistics, the public available statistics around how people use Google, how people use ChatGPT and whatnot, it is quite fascinating to see that ChatGPT, for example, as a rather new search experience, right, has been growing quite quickly to right now about 2.5 billion search queries every single day. Put it differently, there are every single day 2.5 billion search queries being asked, being put into a ChatGPT window. Comparing that to Google and the Google ecosystem, right, we're looking at about 15 billion search queries on Google. Within the Google ecosystem, obviously, we have AI mode, Google AI overviews and whatnot these days. But still, I mean, Google is the number one channel, but we can definitely see that ChatGPT is picking up. So I think this traditional picture of us as consumers browsing the internet through Google is changing, right? Because if you look at your own search behavior, it probably looks like this, we use different platforms for different needs, for different funnel stages as we do our research on the internet. Probably you've all picked your favorite AI tool by now. Let us know in the comments if you're rather on Team Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. What's your favorite go-to tool? I'd love to learn and hear from you. I've seen so many different ones in the last couple of weeks, so really curious to hear from you as well, especially in B2B, right? And we're gonna hear from Charlene in a few moments, the Ambiq story, right? When I talk to B2B tech companies, for example, most often I hear statistics like this, right? I hear them sharing, well, Thomas, we have right now about 1% of referral traffic coming from ChatGPT. This is what we're gonna see in our web analytics, right? And if you don't know that number yourself, I do recommend to look up your number in your web analytics. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 2%, a bit less than that, a bit more. Again, let me know, let us know now or afterwards how your number looks like if you're willing to share it. But I think that's really a ballpark estimate that I've seen in many, especially B2B websites and accounts. But then if the same companies, the same B2B companies ask their leads, the net new leads, for example, through where did you hear about us forms, the number most often looks like this. It's most often about 10%. 10% of all net new leads mentioning ChatGPT or a similar AI search engine as the primary channel where they heard about the brand, the company for the first time. So as you can see in that statistic, 1% referral traffic versus 10% of all net new leads. I think that's quite a significant significant difference in the picture, right? So we wanted to understand what's going on, right? What's going on these AI search channels. And here's really a quick glimpse at the results we found when analyzing about 1 million websites. I think the first comment that I really wanted to call out here is when we look at the types of websites that get cited these days on AI search, and as I mentioned, right, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Overviews, I think the good news for us as brands is our websites, our corporate websites get cited a lot, right? So with 52% of all citations, it's us. So if we've invested in content, if we've invested in our SEO activities, on-page efforts in the past, right? I think the likelihood is quite big that we also get picked up and cited by ChatGPT. With 52%, we're the biggest source of citations here. But then, and that's why I'm super excited to also have Michelle here in the call today, when we look at news and media, right, you can see here that with 20%, this is the second biggest part here, the second biggest piece of the cake here, right? It's lots of editorial content, lots of news content, lots of media content that gets cited and picked up by these AI search engines. And yes, you probably read and heard about Reddit and the buzz around Reddit. In our statistic here, we're 5.9%. It is quite significant and quite important here as well. But let's zoom into the details a bit further, right? So let's look at ChatGPT, right? As we saw earlier, ChatGPT is by far the biggest AI search engine right after Google. How does the world look like for ChatGPT? On ChatGPT, the corporates are a bit lower compared to the average, right? But still 44%. 44% of all websites being cited, it's brand websites, it's corporate websites. News and media plays a larger role here with 25%, right? 25% of all citations coming from news and media sites and 8% community and forum. Put it simple, I would say ChatGPT loves Reddit, Wikipedia, as well as news content. Perplexity is interesting because it loves news and media even more, right? We see here 28% news and media citations, community and forums at 16%, and also lots of blogs, smaller websites, smaller editorial content pieces. So Perplexity, even a bigger fan of news and media. If we look at Google AI Overviews, Google and Google AI Overviews are more focused towards brands, right? So us again, as corporate websites, with close to 60%, it's a really big percentage that is here for us as corporate websites and brands. Side note, I know we didn't analyze, we don't have AI mode here as well, but AI mode works quite similar, right? AI mode has a tendency to lots of corporate website citations. But still, there's a significant part with 16% when it comes to news and media. I see in the comment that Wilder asked what else besides Reddit. If we think about forums and communities, it is 90% Reddit, and then the rest, 10%, is everyone else, right? So depending on your country, depending on your industry, I'm sure there are industry user-generated content out there on the internet. There's lots of smaller forums and communities. So, Reddit is by far the largest one in terms of community, but I also recommend you to look at the other ones in your space, in your industry, because they also get cited quite a bit. Let's move on quickly to the most cited websites. So when we look at the websites and the domains on ChatGPT, right? I mentioned this earlier, right? But Reddit, Wikipedia, we also see here Forbes, CNBC, Business Insiders. These are the most cited websites, according to our statistic at least, on ChatGPT. So again, it shows the important piece towards user-generated content. I would put also Wikipedia in that category, but also news and media. But the reality is, the market dynamic is changing quite quickly, right? We've done this analysis in September. You might have read about the changes that Reddit saw, the drop that Reddit saw on September 11th, right? You can also see that here in my chart, that actually reddit.com dropped significantly on September 11th. But the important piece is, and I know there's lots of content on LinkedIn and on the internet on Reddit, right? Lots of discussions these days, but Reddit is still, and you saw that just on one slide earlier, the most cited website on ChatGPT, right? Yes, there is fluctuation. I think it was maybe ChatGPT, OpenAI did some cleanup, right? Because it was by far the most cited website. These days, it still is the most cited website, but with a bit of fewer visibility, as you can see on the chart here. Real quick, I also wanted to show you this chart because it also shows that the platforms work differently, right? ChatGPT is citing Reddit, as we can see here, way more often than Google does, right? Google AI overviews, I mean, Reddit is still being cited, but not as often as on ChatGPT. We see the same picture here for Wikipedia, right? So Google AI overviews, yes, Wikipedia is getting some citations, but a whole not that more often, right? But if you look at YouTube, for example, on the flip side, I mean, YouTube, obviously owned by Google, is getting cited big times on Google AI overviews and also Perplexity, but is cited less often on ChatGPT. So if you have a solid YouTube strategy, if you have a solid YouTube account, chances are that your videos are being picked up and cited by Google, but it doesn't matter a whole lot for ChatGPT, I would say. So depending on the platform you care about, right, we also need to take that into consideration here. I don't want to go into too much further details. If you want to check out the full report, you can find that on our website. You can also try it here, and we do have an interactive calculator, an interactive website where you can zoom in on your particular country, particular search engine in more detail to check out the most cited websites and categories really. But I think it really paints the picture on what drives citations, right? And I want to conclude with that, right? Because when we think about website citations and how we can get our own website cited, I think it's about a three-staged approach, right? It's about a three-staged approach where we have to think about crawlability. Are we even allowing AI crawlers to crawl our content, right? Be it through the robots.txt or through our CDN providers, right? Crawlability is the first foundation, right? Before we even talk about content. Working on the content gaps that we identify, be it on page, right? The content optimization that we do on page, but also off page are super relevant. And I think this is really a great segue to our conversation today. And I wanted to and I want to hand over to you, Charlene, to walk us through your strategy at Ambiq, right? I know you've been aligning your digital strategy quite a bit with the whole AI search trend, with the whole AI search era. So yeah, maybe you can take over here, Charlene, by walking us through your thought process on how you tackled that really at Ambiq.
Okay. Well, thank you, Thomas. And first, I wanted to give a big shout out to all the participants. Oh my God, the interaction is amazing. I'm watching all the questions coming in, and I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to be part of this session. So, really appreciate that. I want to start by sharing my journey at Ambic. It really started about almost 6 years ago about transformation, both for the company and for how we tell our story. So when I joined, Ambic was already doing incredible work with semiconductor, ultra low power semiconductor solutions. But the world didn't really fully understand how transformative that technology was for enabling intelligence everywhere. So, you see from wearables to industrial IoTs to healthcare devices. So that became our goal. So the first chapter of our journey, me and my team, was was all about clarity and visibility. So building a unified brand narrative and connected our deep engineering expertise with the larger mission of energy efficiency and sustainability. So that started about 6 years ago. So we've been focusing on simplifying our story without losing its technical depth and making it accessible to three major target audiences: our investors, the media, and very, very important, our customers alike. So the next phase has been about expansion and integration. That started about probably 2 years after I started. So as Ambix technology started powering more AI at the edge, innovations like, the wearables, like the hearing aids, like, more recently, the smart glasses, our marketing had to evolve to match that scale. So we integrated corporate marketing, digital strategy, and investor relations under one voice to ensure that we have consistent messaging across all touch points, from product launches to financial communications. And so now we are in what I call the intelligence era of marketing, with the AI reshaping how people search, learn, and make decisions. Our focus is on discoverability, making sure MBIC's expertise surface naturally across both traditional and generative platform. So over the past year, we have seen search result changes faster than ever, right? So people like myself, we don't just Google anymore. We're asking AI platform for answer. So that shift really changed how we think about visibility for Ambic. So we realized that traditional SEO alone wouldn't be enough, because with AI engine generating answers instead of showing links, our goal became making sure that Ambic is part of that answer, not just one of many search results. So that's what led us to prioritize GEO alongside SEO. And that's why we started putting more emphasis on getting authority voices, coverage, content generated by our PR activities. And we also started thinking about how we structure and publish content so it's easier for AI engines to interpret, summarize, and cite accurately. And so if whether it's our innovation in ultra low power semiconductor solutions or AI at the edge, which is super important to what we do, or thought leadership, energy efficiency. So instead of optimizing and prioritizing only on ranking, say, for example, the traditional SEO, we're optimizing for relevance and authority in AI-driven content, AI-driven context. So it's really about expanding from search engine optimization to what I call search interpretation optimization to make sure that Ambiq story shows up whenever and wherever people, and including now the AI, are looking for answers.
I love if I jump in, Jarlene, the search interpretation optimization, SIO. So maybe we just
New
invented a new
acronym.
term, a new acronym, new buzzword. But let's talk a bit about the on-page work that you've done,
Yes,
right? Because you mentioned, I mean, Ambiq, right, as a ultra low power semiconductor solution. I'm a marketer, right? It's a very technical
yes,
topic to me.
yes,
And you mentioned that you have basically three different audiences, right? You target certain persona groups, certain
yes,
customer groups, but
yes,
you as a publicly traded company, right? You also have investors as as a persona,
yes.
right?
Very
And also the
important.
larger, broader media side of things. Walk us through some on-page content optimization, some on-page work that you've been doing and you've done in the past. And I know you've done quite some interesting things as we mentioned in
Thank you.
previous conversations. So maybe you can walk us through a bit how you've been thinking about content, the role of content on your website, and the changes you've basically done in order to be visible and be citable as a website and as a brand on AI search.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And Thomas, if you would please share the ambic.com homepage.
Yeah, we
And
can.
I will
Let's look at your
preface,
website.
yes, thank you. And I will preface by saying that it's all done by my team. Okay. So I have a I have a request for my team, and we discuss about the strategy and the tactics and how we go about measuring it. And my team just goes off and doing everything. So kudos to my team. I hope they're on the call because I could not have done it without them. But now sharing something, thank you, Sean and Stephanie and Nisha, if you guys are on the call. So coming back to the homepage, what do we do? The changes that we made. First, we want to ensure that earlier I talked about visibility, credibility, and accuracy, right? So we want to ensure that the content on the page is accurate and easy to understand and relevant to our target audiences. That's number one. So we review the all the pages, their contents, and so forth. We also there, if you would please stop there. We also get this question a lot, like, oh, we love Edge AI, but what do we do with it? Right? So that inspired us to create a section on our homepage to talk about Edge AI from the customer's perspective, from the investor's perspective, and also to help the press understand from the semiconductors lens what is edge AI. Well, basically, you want the intelligence on your devices at all time, and that's always on in real time, protected your information, so it offers privacy and security. So we offer the content right on our homepage to ensure that whoever visits our site will be able to see the content and dive in to understand a little bit more about what it means, what it does, and where it can apply. And additionally, from years of talking to customers and press and investors, we understand that they have a lot of questions that aren't always easily answered by just browsing through the website content. So, Thomas, if you will please go to the FAQ page. We created the FAQ page. And what inspired us to do this is really conversations with all three target audiences. And we also, like all of us, like myself, I will go on to I'll do Google, I'll do ChatGPT, I'll do Cloud, I'll do different search engines, AI platforms to ask, who is this or what do they do, how big they are, and what is edge AI, and how do you apply that in the wearable devices, and so on and so forth. So this is a work in progress, and there are only limited number of questions and answers we provided here, but this is a living document, and we will continue to add content to it. And I think the fact that we have an FAQ page that's searchable and easily understood and digest and grab by the AI platforms is also helping.
Thanks for sharing, Jolene. And what was super interesting to me as we had a couple of chats leading up to this webinar was that you mentioned the homepage, right? And how you've kind of tried to make sure that you're tackling the main question up front, right? What is edge AI?
Yes.
And I think I'll get. I'm not sure if how the audience feels about this, but I get a lots of questions these days around. Well, should we create dedicated landing pages for all of those important topics? And what was super interesting, I think, in our conversation, and I think I even haven't told you that yet, is your website is one of the most cited. I think the most cited URL on the homepage of yours is the most cited URL on ChatGPT and AI search, right? So I think the
Wow.
interesting piece there is, or the interesting food for thought, at least for me, is that we sometimes don't need to go through like landing page creation. Let's create all the different landing pages for all the different topics. We just need to have a really clear and precise question and answer type style also on our homepage, right? And as Ambiq is targeting also different persona groups, most often they'll land on the homepage. And I guess I wanna confirm that point in the sense of also AI search is pointing people to your homepage as the main entry point, right? So I'm not sure if that
Amazing.
was exactly your thinking, but I guess now looking back, I think it's really interesting to see that most often the homepage is the entry point not only for our users, but also for people coming in through ChatGPT, Perplexity, and AI search in general.
That that's great. That's great to know. And Thomas, you know, marketing is not just about like what we do or what we deliver, how we are measured, right? So all the
Yeah.
more reason to use utterly AI to show the results of our labor, right? The fruit of our labor to the executives and to the CEO, like, hey, we didn't just spend money on doing, beautiful things. We are actually delivering results, and this is
Yeah.
the proof. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it really does that.
Amazing. Quick reminder for the audience, if you have questions for Charlene, Michelle, myself, please drop it in the chat. We'll come to that. But I'd love to move on real brief too, because I know you've not only done some on-page work, right, that you've optimized, but there was also PR involved, right? There were off-page signals. And I know, Michelle, you're the expert on PR, so I guess I'll hand over the word to you to walk us through what you've done together with Charlene from a PR perspective, building up trust signals that also helped, I guess, I hope, from an AI search perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, PR has always been important for brand awareness, right, and visibility, and it's now that influence we're seeing it in AI search. So kind of similar, if you go to the next slide that you were sharing with PR driving results, there was a recent Muckrack study. Of course, every LLM may be a bit different and open AI models, fresh content, recent content on opinion-based articles gets prioritized. You see they looked at Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT. You can see the high domain authorities like Reuters, Financial Times are cited, but not always consistently. Kind of echoing what you said, like more than 95% of the links are from non-paid media. So there's a huge PR opportunity here, and understanding what media gets cited with which LLMs can help fine-tune your PR strategy. And if you go to the next slide, this is what we use, like we went into Otterly for Ambiq, right? And so looking at one of their prompts, the most energy efficient chip. So you can see some of these other similar media outlets getting cited across the LLMs. You see the Wall Street Journals, the Forbes, and the Reuters. A note on Reuters is you get an article in Reuters, it usually gets picked up across many publications. And that could end up on multiple LLMs and platforms. So I think that's just always a tip for the PR teams that out there that you should always try to get into Reuters. And then the other interesting thing I thought here is from a technology and science. These science publications are getting cited because they're factual, they're instructional, and that in the LLMs like that. So it's just really important to continue to kind of monitor that. And then if you go to the next slide. So business, these top tier, like anyone that has a PR team, has an agency, the first thing they always want is they want to be in the business press. They want to be in the Wall Street Journal. But these tech and semi pubs are also getting cited. And we were looking at in the Otterly platform, we are looking at ultra low power, which we've heard Charlene talk about as a key message that they've anchored all their content around. You can see they've ranked like number 4. And the interesting thing was this, one of the top links was this article in electronic design. So it wasn't Reuters, wasn't Forbes, electronic design. And we're seeing these other tech and trade publications start to be cited because they're educational, they're factual, and what the readers want to read. And it's not so marketing oriented. And that's one thing I think, like as marketers, we always want to market our company, but it's more this thought leadership that's really working. And next slide. This was really interesting. So Ambiq went public fairly recently, end of July. And when Charlene and I talked about the media approach for the day of listing and an IPO, we didn't even talk about AI search, right? We just didn't, right? Because we were so focused, on your audience, the investors, that we wanted to be on CNBC TV, wanted to be on all these financial outlets, which we did. But what was interesting is I went back in to Artely and said, okay, well, let's just see what happened right before. So this time frame from end of July to right after the IPO. And there you see what Thomas was talking about. There's your website, right? Your domain ranked. But down here we saw MarketWatch, and I didn't really think about that, but like MarketWatch is being cited quite a bit. And so that's, Charlene and I talked about this, and now that's kind of informing our strategy moving forward for like earnings, for example, that we want to make sure that we're talking to MarketWatch and getting covered in MarketWatch. So you don't always think about AI search, but we need to as we go forward with our PR campaigns and different announcements. So what is Ambiq doing well? I think Ambiq's a great use case for all of you. Sort of what are they doing well in content PR? And you've heard some of this, but this frequent product feature news. I mean, when I prepared this slide, they had this announcement here, but actually today they had another product announcement, right? So they're consistently have fresh news hooks. They're getting the coverage that's helping getting cited. The technology narrative's anchored in this power efficiency edge AI. You can see that in some of the screenshots that we shared, that the LLMs are clustering like who is the leader in low power edge AI, and they're getting included in with some really big companies. I don't think I've seen a company get as many awards as the Ambiq team has done. So it's like kudos to your team, Charlene. But there's a recent one in Time, and I don't know, Thomas, if you have that like reference, but it was really interesting to see that being mentioned. You were showing us the other day.
Yes, so I think the interesting story there was, right. I think Charlene was telling us in one of the meetings, hey, we're getting this big award from Times Magazine, right? We are forgive me the precise wording, one of the best inventions of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Charlene, please jump in if I'm
Yes,
mispositioning
yeah,
that.
you're right.
Like,
The best inventions, one of the best inventions of 2025. So we're truly honored
so,
by
so,
that.
so Charlene was kind of giving us this heads up. Hey, Thomas, Charlene, Michelle, this is coming, right? Maybe it shows up on AI, right? We hope it shows up on AI as well, right? And this was rather recent award, right, that Ambiq received, and I was
Hmm.
just pulling up yesterday, and we were looking at this yesterday together. That right now, when we look at Ambiq, right, and how Ambiq in their respective field is being portrayed and which websites are getting cited, right? I filtered down here the media websites, right? So here in this chart, we're looking at the most cited media sites for the Ambiq space, right? And yes, there's CRN, there's Finance Yahoo, but right now in the third position we have Time.com, right? Times Magazine, and if we even drill down here, right, the most cited right now, the most cited URL on Time.com actually is this one, right? The best inventions of 2025, and if I'm not mistaken, if we head over to the I category, we're gonna see Ambiq being positioned right here quite closely, right? So I think it's really great to see also how fast, right, AI search picks up those citations and those efforts that you, Michelle and Jolene and your teams are really doing there, right, to position Ambiq there. So yeah, just wanted to point that out that right now, these Times articles are amongst the most cited URLs in the media space right now for Ambiq, which is really cool to see and kind of shows that it's not only a really amazing award, right, that you've won and a really amazing recognition, but there's real life impact for us there. So yeah,
Thank you.
back to you, Michelle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then obviously, whenever you can show partner and customer success, that, and Ambic does a great job of that when they can, sometimes customers don't allow you to talk about them, but when they do a great job in showing the real impact that Ambic is making that can be, that's being referenced by media and in the LM responses. I mean, I just think Charlene talked about this, but like the biggest takeaway is the message consistency, that under her leadership and with her team, that you see the same messaging throughout presentations, through releases, the messages that we're using in interviews with press and the metrics, you see that throughout. And so this repeated terminology is a single for authority and consistencies, which is, why they're getting really good results. So just sort of summary and PR, like what we've put together 5 tips for rethinking your PR strategy for AI search. Use a tool like Audily to kind of build your LM citation matrix. Like what are the topics? What are the right prompts? How are you showing up if you are, against the competition? And you can analyze it and then kind of rethink how you might approach your PR differently. But as any announcement in any campaign, you always want to understand your goals and audience. Like the IPO example, like we AI wasn't really our top of mind, but now it is, right? Going forward. So, there may be times, obviously, you have certain publications that you always want to reach, but now you have another dimension to it that you have to think about. The content has to be structured that's very factual, citation-friendly nuggets, like we've seen in some of the Ambit coverage. It still needs to be human, but it's a retrieval asset. But as many like metrics, claims that you can obviously be consistent with over, throughout your channels will also help. And you want to distribute your content across owned, earned, and seeded domains. So like formats that work well, like we saw the FAQs, listicles, if you can get reviews, different forums to participate in. And again, you reinforce those same claims across. And then constantly monitor, readjust, and adopt. PR professionals were always about mentions and share of voice, but now we worry about share of model. I saw a question in the chat said like, well, which one should I care about? I feel like you need to care about them all right now because you don't really know. Like you have different audiences and they're going to different platforms. So maybe you're doing really well in ChatGPT right now, but not in Perplexity. So then you need to really analyze that and see how you can change that and grow your share model, so that you have wider AI visibility across all the models.
Amazing. I think that's a really great conclusion here, Michelle. Thanks for the summary. Before I'll head into some questions that I have for you, also looking ahead, what's next for you, Michelle and Jolene? maybe we'll pause here. We have about 15 minutes left, which is, I think, great timing for some questions and answers. So if anyone has any question on their minds right now, either post it in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself. We can also tackle that. I know we have also some questions in the chat, so I'll be opening up the chat window here and we can look at some questions. But if you have some questions right now, be it for Michelle, Charlene, or myself, now is the time. So there was one question, will we be sharing the slides? Yes, we will be sharing the slides. I think there was also some testing being done by Mehul, who already looked up and did some research on Ambiq and how Ambiq is being cited and mentioned along some big giants, and was giving, I think it was not a question, but giving kudos to you, Charlene. So great job, and thanks for checking that, Mehul. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead, Ryan.
So with some of our existing clients, we've had resistance when it comes from transitioning from just the general SEO stuff to AI. And I was wondering if you guys had advice on how to best show that value, help them understand like, hey, this isn't something you wait until you're already behind. This is something that you start now while it's nascent, or I guess it's active now, but start now. Like, how have you communicated that in a successful way to your clients, I guess?
Who wants to
Um,
go first? Charlene? Any
Thomas,
thoughts?
why don't I do that?
Yeah.
So Ryan, so I think I have internal clients, all the executives, right? And
Yeah.
they're watching the SEO ranking. And please prepare them in advance as well that when you switch from SEO to GEO, your SEO ranking, well, your SEO ranking is decreasing, is dropping because nowadays more people are using AI platform anyway. Um, but I think how I convince all the stakeholders is that, hey, do you use AI platform for
Okay.
search, right? If you do, then think about everybody else like you who be using that and the structure for how AI digest, and take your content from your website is slightly different than the traditional website. So you don't want to be lagging behind when it comes to search results. You want to be like, instead of, trying to bring the audience to you to listen to your messaging, you go find the audience where you can effectively communicate the messaging to the audience. So I say, Ryan, just ask them that simple question: Do you use AI platform? If you do, then we need to be there, right? You need to be there.
Awesome.
Maybe
Thank you.
that's
Yeah.
too simple, but maybe
No.
Thomas and
The C-suite for sure needs simple. That's
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that's a great. I absolutely agree with Charlene here, right? The other comment I would make is look at some early signals, right? And I think it's not an SEO or GEO type conversation, right? The
Mhm.
conversation is more to Charlene's point, where is our audience, right? And if our audience is moving to these new AI channels, right? We should be there, right? We should be there sooner than later. And I think there are signals, right, on out there besides that question from Charlene. I think there's also signals like web traffic. Is there already referral traffic coming to your website from ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever, right? That's one signal. The second signal is what do you hear from the customer side of things from
Mhm.
your audience, right? Is your sales team, if you work in B2B, right? Your sales team might be hearing statements like, we found you on ChatGPT, right? So I think those qualitative and quantitative signals will help make the case for AI search as well. Maybe it's also a great question for Michelle, right? As from an agency perspective, how do you and your clients think
Absolutely.
about this?
Yeah, I mean, like it's great that Ambiq already, Charlene, they already have the insight to do this, right? But not all clients are there yet. But I have been sharing, with clients that's just to sort of say you have to start thinking about this. It is the future, right? And so conversations that I've had with clients, and then when I can show them and go into Audibly and show them the results. Like I had another client launched some new web pages the other day, and then we did it differently. We had more of an FAQ approach, and we're seeing the results, right? So I think it's like you have to show them, right? That you can't just tell them, but you have to show them, right? That this is working, and it doesn't take a lot. I don't think I think there's some baby steps that you can do that you can show them some simple results. That it doesn't mean like you have to change everything you're doing, right? If they're resistant to change.
Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. What and just as a follow-up, what are the baby steps? I'm guessing that's what Mark was going to ask.
Yeah, I
No.
mean, I think just one, like using a tool like Audibly, right? So you can really see how you're showing up, and then and like focus on a few things, like take like Charlene's playbook, right? Maybe it's creating some FAQs on your website, and then looking at, the on the PR coverage, like are you getting coverage in the right publications that are getting cited, right? So just shifting a few things that I think you can do without like a huge investment, initially.
And one baby step to add to that is check out what the competition is doing, right? You might
Mm,
find PR citations, media citations portraying your competitors, right? You might find some really great on-page work done by the competition. So I think that's another signal, right? Another baby step that
mhm.
most often helps to map out the playbook, really.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you all for your answers.
You're welcome, Ryan. Mark, you did
Yes,
unmute yourself,
thank you.
so over to you.
So I wanted to add, so Ryan and I work together. Sorry, I don't want to mean to monopolize this, but I do want to give another shameless plug for Otterly. We had an interesting situation where we have a client that is from a regulatory perspective, maybe not allowed to use AI. And so
Mm,
the pushback was the people, our customers, they're not allowed to use AI. And so with Otterly's reporting, we were able to go back and say, well, they are. So I don't know if
mhm.
they're going home to do it, but your customers are using AI significantly, and so that was a big push for us to get them over that hurdle of do I really need it? Do I wait?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really interesting because, yeah, there are some like larger companies, right, that maybe even have their own version, right, of ChatGPT or whatever, right, or the Copilot, right? But they're more like biased, right? Because I mean, Thomas can probably comment on this better than I can, but you do really need that outside, just like in anything, like you need the outside thinking, outside view, right? And that's why it's important to look at it from an external point of view, not just internal.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, people find their way around limitations, right? And I
Right.
would I would make the point, and I've seen big companies, right, limiting AI access, but people use their personal phones, personal computers,
Mhm.
people find their workarounds. So I
Right.
I guess one of the reasons why you might see those statistics is because of that. But yeah,
Hmm.
definitely an interesting field. I saw
Thomas,
also,
there are some questions in
yes.
the chat.
Let's look at the chat real quick. We have a couple of minutes left. Let me see. There was a technical question from Jessica. Are you guys using tools like LLMS.txt file or model context protocol to try to feed information to AI beyond scraping? So maybe that's a question for you, Charlene, in regards to is Ambiq using the LLMS.txt file on as a way?
So yeah, I think that question came from Jessica, and I actually told Jessica that I'm not a technical person. My team is. So I'm actually having a separate chat with my team to get some of the answers for Jessica. So right now, I don't know. I haven't asked my team. My team is the brain. So let me get back to you on this, Jessica, where I think that's from Jessica.
Yes, amazing. And I actually just checked, Charlene. So you are having a llms.txt file on your website. So
Okay.
your team has implemented it. Great job there. I guess Jessica is also asking in regards to is it relevant or not? And I know there's been discussion in the SEO community, GEO community around the role of the llms.txt file. And the recommendation I would give you, Jessica, is it's not a standard yet, right? It's a proposed proposal, I guess, to establish that as a standard. So it's not a standardized thing similar to the robots.txt file, but we actually have seen clients' accounts and also in some log analytics that certain AI crawlers starting to crawl the llms.txt file as well. So while it's not a standard yet, it doesn't hurt having an llms.txt file. Hope this answered your question there as well. What else do we have here? These prompts are you're being asked by your audience, follow-up stats of how many times they're being asked. Mehul, maybe you want to clarify your question, but I think your question is around the prompts, right? How to find prompts, how to find the relevant prompts that people use on those platforms. I think Charlene, you basically answered that a bit in your talk, right? Because you've mentioned that you've done basically market research, right? You listen closely
Yes.
to your customers, and so
Yes.
maybe you want to comment on that quickly.
So I think the easier way, for me anyway, that I found success is to listen to the questions. If they ask, nowadays there are AI meeting note takers everywhere. But if you focus on the questions, then when you go back and review the meeting notes, you will figure out, oh, these questions are being asked more often than I remember. And those questions will be the one. And also autocomplete function on the side. Sometimes they will try to complete your questions in Google or in AI platforms. So perhaps you can rely on those as tips as well. But I would say the best way is to talk to your customers and talk to your investors, shareholders, and when you talk to the media, like when Michelle set up meetings and so forth, if I have the opportunity, I'll ask them, what do your readers care about the most? Right? So get
Yeah.
some feedback from the press too. I'm sure that they have a lot to share and they're willing to.
100%. And I love that because there's nothing beats real customer insights, real insights from the audiences we target. I also dropped a link to an article in the chat because also from a Google perspective, Google Search Console provides us a real nugget when it comes to real queries that real people have on the internet. So if you check out your Google Search Console, if you filter for the long queries, if you filter for the how do I do that, what is that, the what is the how to queries, you're gonna find real queries from real people asking those questions on Google AI mode, and the whole Google ecosystem. And I think in addition to what Charlene is saying, is another great source of information when it comes to identifying the relevant prompts. We have 1 minute left, so I would do one more quick question for you, Michelle and Charlene, around FAQs. There was one question from Angela. Are there any do's and don'ts? How did you think about content length, for example, Charlene, as you build out the FAQs? Any quick thoughts on do's and don'ts of building out an FAQ section on a website?
I think when it comes to the don'ts, it's just that there's enough misinformation out there, and just stay true to your messaging and stay accurate, and don't like try to embellish but those are the basics, right? So those are what I abide by, because every day you got to repeat the same thing. So you got to be true to yourself and true to the company messaging that you believe in. And day in, day out, you share that messaging.
And I would just add to that, like just simple language, right? That's easy for people to understand, right? And for easy for humans and the algorithm to understand.
Exactly. Be precise, be clear.
Yeah.
We do have a free tool. So if you want to check out your content, right, feel free to check out this content checker that helps validate that, right? But it's basically all about clear content, precise content. We're right on the hour. So I would say a big thank you to you, Michelle, to you, Charlene, coming on to this webinar.